Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Half Geek, Half Human podcast. I am one of your hosts, Joey Baggett. I'm joined by my co-host, Anna Kate Ross, and we are excited to introduce our episode for today, which is with Angela Crane-Jones of the Nashville Business Incubation Center. And to save everybody a little bit of hearing, we are just going to condense that to NBIC for the remainder of the podcast. But you'll get us to introduce Angela. She's great. She's been the CEO there for a really long time, and she's really helped a lot of local Nashville businesses get off the ground and grow and nurture their clients and just continue to excel in the market. So we're excited to share about how she does that. I guess a little bit about her path from a franchise owner at Dairy Queen into the CEO of the NBIC. So it's really cool. And one of the things that I know I'm excited for you guys to hear is kind of their methodology of what they call it's from acorns to oaks, and just how they take small acorns, they plant them, they nurture them, and they grow into these big, giant, great oak tree that's strong and solid. And she helps them really increase their revenue and does a lot of cool things in the Nashville community outside of just nurturing these businesses. So excited to share that with you guys. Anna Kay, what did you take away from our interview with Angela?
Yeah, I loved that conversation. She brings so much passion to her role at the NBIC. And the thing that stood out to me most after walking away was the holistic approach that both Angela and also the NBIC take with their clients. It's everything from kind of doing an audit to see where they are with all of their infrastructure and paperwork, and just kind of starting the whole process of starting a business, up to helping them really kick their business off and then keep going strong. They kind of touch the relationship at every step along the way. And it was really neat to see the way that they've developed their own infrastructure to be able to do that, but also just like the caring and kind of nurturing element of what they're doing with these businesses to keep them going. So it was a really fun conversation.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you'll even hear some about a few things around Nashville that you might recognize, like the Grilled Cheesery and Slim and Husky's Pizza. So a lot of those are some of their success stories that she's going to touch on throughout the interview. So again, we're excited to let you guys hear that, and we're going to kick it off right now.
Welcome, everybody, to the Half Geek, Half Human podcast. I am Joey Baggett, and I am joined by my co-host, Anna Kate Ross. Today, we are joined by Angela Crane-Jones, the CEO of the Nashville Business Incubation Center. And just because of the length of the name, we're going to call it the NBIC for the rest of the podcast. Angela has served at the NBIC since 2003. She's a graduate of TSU. Welcome, Angela, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So we're going to talk a lot about the NBIC, but of course we want to get to know Angela. We want to know a bit about your past and a bit about your journey. So basically, we want to hear from you how you got to this point in your career where you just wanted to kind of cultivate these young entrepreneurs. And then we'll talk about separately the NBIC and how it helps those entrepreneurs. But tell me, what kind of motivated you to get to that point where you just wanted to mentor and guide these young entrepreneurs into their business?
Well, I've been very fortunate to wear many hats in my life. I'm a wife and a mother. I've been a business owner of, two franchises, which were Dairy Queens. I'm currently, a nonprofit leader. I serve on, multiple boards. And I'm the CEO of the Nashville Business Incubation Center, like you said. And for the sake of this conversation, we will call it NBIC. I became the CEO here in 2013, and I've always been passionate about systems, hence buying the franchise. Because I firmly believe when you have the right systems in place in your personal life as well as in your professional life, you can count on things kind of working out the way they should, or at least being able to adapt from what has happened. So going back to my early experiences with owning the Dairy Queen and coming to work for a nonprofit, the one thing I realized it's important to have capital, financial capital as well as social capital. And at the same time, in the minority community, many times they don't have capital and also have access to social capital, and especially for women, and they're not, taught to be a CEO, and hence that started my path of really wanting to cultivate young entrepreneurs, especially, women in minority firms, to help them build relationships and provide the access to social capital that they need.
You mentioned social capital, and that's not a term that probably many people hear a lot. Can you just kind of give us, like, in your definition, what is social capital, and what's a good way, I guess, of getting more of that?
So I define, social capital is relationships. A lot of times people don't think about building personal relationships with individuals in the areas that you want to be in. So for instance, for me, where I've really tried to work and build relationships, it's like in the banking area or individuals that are leaders in the community. And so for us, what I define that is, who do you have personal relationships with and professional relationships with when you need something? I'll give you, for instance, you can have capital and the bank can give you $1 million to build a building. But if codes, says X, Y, and Z, do you have someone that you can pick up the phone, and call, and they can pick up the phone and call codes and say, can you do X, Y, and Z for them and move that along? And I see that many times when I say minority women, and a lot of times just because we don't move in those circles. So it's really just being intentional and building authentic relationships.
Yeah. So that's kind of a nice segue into the NBIC. So can you talk to us a little bit about how you take the small acorns and grow them into the mighty oaks, as you say, as part of the NBIC?
Yes. We consider a business to be a mighty oak when they get to at least $1 million in revenue and create at least 5 jobs. And that's just like when you think about an oak tree. These businesses have created revenue and they create at least 5 jobs. And then our role is to make sure they're deeply rooted, that it will allow the business to survive storms and come out on the other side strong. For instance, just going through the pandemic, I'm very proud to say that all our clients were able to weather the storm, but not even weather the storm, they thrive through the storm, either by having, a solid business and able to, to pivot, or having, like I just said earlier, some strong social relationships. But if someone's never planted a tree before, they might not know what to do. And so at NBIC, we're able to water them, as they go through, the process, and, and cut back those branches that may be, dying. And that's where it may be a stream of revenue that it's really not a stream of revenue. And many of the clients we work with, they face a lot of challenges because, again, they don't have access. Well, I don't like to use the word access to capital. I was about to say that because so many people said they're really not capital ready. They don't know what they don't know. They don't have the right systems, in place. And we really work with them on shifting their mindset to move from working in their business to working on their business on a daily basis.
Can you speak to what some of those processes are? Like when a new customer comes or a new client comes to you all, where do you begin with them? And I'm sure it's probably pretty dependent on where they are in their business life cycle, but give us kind of a case study.
So one of the main things that we do when someone comes to us is do a biz quiz. And it's really just assessing where they are in their journey, because one of the things I say to my staff all the time, we're not here to tell someone that's not a great idea, because obviously the Crocs wouldn't be here if it was left up to me. And so we really assess them by asking 31 logic-based questions. Like, do you have a banking relationship? Are you commingling your funds? Do you have, a line of credit? Do you have an EIN number? Do you have what at NBIC call a bail team? Do you have a banker, an accountant? Are you properly insured? And have you had someone to look at your legal system? And from there, we just begin to build out systems for them. So if they do have, a banker, are they ready to move with a banker relationship to get a line of credit? And when we say put systems in place, do you have QuickBooks? Do you have an AR and a AP process? Things of that nature. Very foundational, but we saw so many businesses that just started and just take off. And which is nothing, wrong with that when you have an idea. But what we're trying to do is remove the barriers of you starting a business and then finding out 2-3 years down the road, you should have started with a solid foundation.
So that's an interesting point. And one thing that kind of Anna Kate mentioned there. So at Atiba, we're a software development firm as well. We have people come to us all the time with these ideas for a mobile application or a new piece of custom software. And so a lot of our questions to them, I guess our very, very pared down biz quiz would be, what is the why? Like, what is the problem here that we are solving with this piece of software? Have you thought through, like, do you have a technology officer to help you make these decisions? So I guess are there times where people come to you with an idea and you're maybe saying that's not really a great idea, but you don't want to obviously like hurt their feelings or anything like that, or discourage them. So I guess what is your way of handling those situations?
So that's where we bring subject matter experts in to help, them create a, strategy, customer, discovery. If they don't have any, customers that just got a great idea. What we tend to, unfortunate but unfortunate, most people come to us, they've already, as far as I'm concerned, they've already jumped. You know what I'm saying? They left the job. They've already, started the business with the idea. And so then it's us putting them in one of our classes. So we have cohorts. One of our cohorts is called the Foundations. It's 12 weeks, and that's where we really kind of work with them on, basics. Okay, they started the business, but to your point, they don't really have any customers, and they're, I don't want to use the word upset, but they're discouraged. And so well, have you even tested, the product? Are you trying to sell something that people are not really, buying? And so for us, it's sending them through that cohort base. So one, they see they're not in it alone, because we don't want to. I mean, I discourage my staff from telling us it's a bad idea, even if we outright think it's a bad idea. Because again, I go back to the pet rock. I'm about to tell my age, but the Chia Pet. These are, companies that I would have, if I would have said this is a bad idea, who's going to buy this?
I can completely relate. That does seem like a ridiculous idea, yet we all know what a Chia Pet is, or at least most people listening probably will. So you've got the biz quiz and you've got the 12-week cohort. These sound like really good starts and tools for some of your small business owners to start with, to kind of build out the concept behind their business. And that would also help them with their financial capital pieces, I would think. But going back to the social capital piece that you mentioned at the beginning, how do you help them build their social capital?
So for there, I'll just give you, an instance of, some of our small business owners is one, joining associations so they can begin to build relationships. How do they move into a leadership role? By joining a committee and leading that committee. But also some of the social capital is working with NBIC. And again, if you're doing the things that we're requesting, which are foundational things that every business needs to have, then I will open up my Rolodex and say, okay, this is the banker you really need to go see. Or, this is the company that's going to meet you where you are in the journey. But for the first 3 to 6 months, we're just working with them on how to build a relationship. Because what we see is someone would come to Atiba and then tell you what you need to do, and you're thinking, okay, why did they bring you in? You're the expert, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I imagine that Rolodex is pretty full after 20 years of being at the NBIC. So I bet your connections are super valuable. And I imagine that's why a lot of people come to the NBIC, is because they can, maybe if you don't have that connection, you can at least point them in the right direction. So, as a business owner, like coming into somewhere like that would be super helpful. And now, so I'm going to ask another question. I do want to talk about a few of the graduates that you guys have had there. And because there's some names that people are really going to recognize. And I just, if you could talk, I guess, a little bit of a smaller case study just about how the success for these companies came about. So we've got a few names people are going to recognize in Nashville: Christie Cookies, the Grilled Cheesery, and Slim and Huskies. So those are some pretty big, well-known people now. In fact, I was at the Vanderbilt game a couple weeks ago, and Slim and Huskies is really big in the Vanderbilt Stadium. I didn't realize that. So clearly the NBIC propelled them into this. So tell me a little bit about their story and how they worked with you guys.
I'm going to start off with Slim and Husky, since that's where you left off. So Clint, EJ, and Derek actually started off as a moving truck company with us. And when they came to NBIC, again, one of the first things we started was getting the right systems in place. And really, although, one of the owners actually has an MBA in accounting, but it's a difference in theory versus actually putting something, in place. So we really work with them, putting an accounting system in place, working with, QuickBooks, creating a process, policies, how to train staff, onboarding staff, but really just making sure, again, that they had the foundational pieces in place. That's one. And then when you think about, which a lot of people don't realize, we helped them with another company, which is called GTO Logistics, that they also, had at the same time, where it was targeted toward doing work in the federal arena. And as that business started, to, scale, they, pivoted into something they loved and they really wanted to do, which is starting a pizzeria. So, they sold the green truck company and started a pizza chain. And I think another good small case study is, the grilled cheesery, how we helped them when they first came. Krista and her husband worked both trucks together. And so for us, I'm always trying to help them come up, what is the carrot? To your point earlier, like why are we doing this business? And one of, the things is, like many, they want to, build wealth, for their family. And so I worked with them on putting just standard operating procedures in place because Krista is super smart, great chef, professionally trained, but she was type A. She wanted everything to be a certain way. So we helped her step back from the business and create processes so someone else could come in and do the way she wanted her cheesery, to be run. And then when they wanted to expand and have brick and mortars, we were able to leverage our partnership that we have with Frost Brown Todd. This is a social capital moment, to talk about, because most people don't see a lawyer as an investment, in reviewing documents. And so we were able to reach out to, Makisha Montgomery at Frost Brown Todd and ask her, was willing to do some pro bono work, to review the contract that was being presented to them by their partner. So those are the things when I think about what we do at NBIC and how we provide that social, that social capital that they didn't have and would have to make a decision. Do they pass on this deal or do they go into a deal that's really not a good deal for them? But if they had a lawyer, they can negotiate on their behalf. So those are some of the, the examples. And so now you think about Slim and Huskies, they have 11 locations and I can't keep up in 4 states. So
I'm sure Anna Kate probably has a question here and just say, but I do want to make a comment. One thing that I think is, because I'm in sales here at Ativa. So one thing I think is underrated with a lot of people is just knowing names, being able to talk about those people. And so like we're asking you these questions and a few of it's kind of unprompted, but you're just able to name off these people, like first and last name of just these relationships you have. Basically, it's like the Rolodex might just be in your head, which is really cool. So I just wanted to point out that that's, one of those things that not a lot of people have. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, part of your value proposition, I'm sure, for the whole organization. And I have like a few questions now, but so when a client works with you, it sounds like, at least with the Slim and Huskies example, and it sounds like maybe with the grilled cheesery too, but that these are multi-year engagements. Like you stay with them and continue helping to advise them long after, the biz quiz and they've gone through maybe a cohort or something like that. Has that been the case with some of your clients where they've stayed on for a number of years?
Great point. I'm glad you asked that question. So let me go back and clarify. NBIC is a 5-year program because we know the failure rate is in the first 5 years. And so what we did in 2018, I saw what I deemed as a gap in the community because there are a lot of great programs out here when you think about startup. And so we all clap and are happy for someone to start a company, but we never talk about the silent closes. And so for me, it was like, how do we fill that gap where you went to an 8-week class? We've all went to, a conference, we come back and it's like, this is so much great information, but how do they implement? And so for us, when we work each and every day, it's with That's that's their vision. Then helping them create a strategy. But for the next 5 years, how do they execute so they can be deeply rooted and they can weather some of these storms? Because we know, just like now, we're talking about going to recession. This is not something new. I'm old enough to have been through the tech crisis, the financial crisis, the housing crisis, recession, pandemic, and whatever the next thing is going to be. So those things are going to happen every couple of years.
Gotcha. So you've got some deep, long relationships with some of these businesses to not only get them set up for success on the front end, but help them weather the storms when they come. And that's a good segue into the, we've just talked about some great success stories, but, there are, I'm sure so many small business owners, when they're getting started, they're worried about becoming another statistic or, another failed business venture. I mean, that's just so many, like you said, so many businesses fail even within the first 5 years. And you've talked also about some of the clients coming to you all feeling discouraged when they start. How do you, what kind of advice do you give to them, or how do you keep them encouraged?
One, we meet them where they are in the journey, and I think that's one of the things that we do extremely well. We're not here again to judge. We let the clients know when they come to us that this is a vault, and until they start telling their story, we don't tell their story, and then we help them get, for lack of a better word, I call them business best buddies. Everybody got good friends, best friends, but when you're trying to start a business, it's a different conversation, and your friends and family are not going to really understand why you having to prioritize your business, why you can't, be with them. So that's, I feel like, one of the ways, and they know that they have someone they can come and, and talk to. And one of the things that we're really going to try to do in 2023 is just have more, mentors and advisors that can meet them where they are.
And what's just out of curiosity, what's a way to bring in those mentors and advisors? I'm sure, again, you can just make some calls and bring some people in, but I'm talking about new people that maybe you have not worked with before that are leaders in whatever industry they're in. What is your way of bringing those people to the NBIC to help out?
I mean, so in the past, you hit the nail on the head. A lot of it was me, but I'm moving my own self out of the way and have empower our staff to start doing like lunch and learns. And the lunch and learns would be, threefold. One for someone that just wants to, volunteer at the organization, someone that may want to come to NBIC and learn more about and see where they could fit into the, the program. And then someone that wants to sponsor, because the work we do depend upon, sponsorship and grants. And so in 2023, we will be having, lunch and learns at least once a month, so people can learn more about us and see where they fit in. But previously, you're right, I would just pick up the phone and say, JJ, I have someone over here that needs help with, IT or digital transformation. Can you spend some time with them?
And so someone that might listen to this that says like, hey, I like your mission, I like what you're doing. What is the best way for me to get involved? What would you encourage that person to do?
To visit our website at www.nbiconline.com, volunteer. And so they could go on our website and, contact us that way.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think that's great. And what's funny is that you said you're going to get out of your own way. And Anna Kate, I might take one of your questions on this. I'm sorry, but I just think it's really funny how she brings this up. Is that you do encourage your entrepreneurs to shift their mindset from a worker bee mentality is something that you've used. And I would say working in your business to shift to that CEO mentality to where you're working on your business instead. So what would you encourage those people to do to get to that point?
I mean, the good thing is, like I said, I've walked in their shoes, so I understand when you start your business, you're responsible for everything. You're the operations director, you're the finance person, you're the marketing person. And so, again, like me, as I've brought on people, I'm taking the hats off and empower them. But the most effective, CEO makes decisions that no one else can make. And so I have to remind myself on a regular basis, only do what I can do. I delegate others to be able to carry out whatever that task needs to be. And then some things you have to delete. It's not the time, even though you may think it's on your task list, then to put it, aside for maybe another 30 days or 60 days. So the best way I tell people is, one, join NBIC, because that is one of the first things we work on for about 6 months, is helping them shift that, because it's hard to decide what you should or shouldn't do when you've been doing everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm sure that is a hard mind shift to kind of get into. I'm going to pivot a little bit to the community outreach component, because I know you personally are really involved in the community. You're a board member and have been on several different boards throughout your career. It sounds like you gain your best buddies, your business best buddies that you said, just people kind of wanting to give back and joining your organization that way. Can you talk a little bit about like your community involvement and maybe how also you encourage some of the folks in your cohort maybe to also get involved in their communities?
So, for example, I'm very passionate about March of Dimes, and I'm blessed to be coming on as the chair of March of Dimes in January 2023. My son Donovan was born premature at 1 pound and 6 ounces, and that is a very, very scary time. And I know without the resources of March of Dimes, I know my husband and I would have had a much tougher time of how to maneuver having a premature child that's in the hospital for 3 months. So I'm blessed to have the ability to work with March of Dimes. And so what I try to do is encourage our staff and our clients to get involved in the community. That's one way, again, like I said earlier, building relationships. It also gives you opportunity to give back, because what I hear and see many times is people say, when I become a millionaire, when I become, when I get $10 million, that I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And I try to teach that the best time to start right now. Your talent is very, important, and it helps impact the nonprofit. And so what we do, part of our program is, again, they need to start out, just go join something that's your association. If you're in a marketing firm, join the American Marketing Association for the first year and kind of cut your teeth, and then move into, actually serving on a committee, so you can build up those leadership skills and, again, build that social capital, that you need.
And how do you find the time to do all of these things?
Great question. I love this question. I mean, and I do, because I'll be honest, very transparent. In 2012, when my predecessor, resigned, I moved in the interim role and basically said, I do not want to be the CEO of NBIC. I'm happy being number 2, which is what I used to tell her probably, monthly. But it was an opportunity. I took it to help keep the organization moving forward. But the reason why I didn't want it, because I wanted to be a great wife. I wanted to be a great mother. And I had owned my own business, and thought I couldn't be a good wife or a good mother. But what I realized was, you need to have a tribe. You need to understand time management. And thankfully to JJ Rosen, Atiba, he introduced me to Basecamp, and I live by the project, just the whole project management mentality, as well as I created an ideal work week. Like, I know, and my assistant knows where I should be spending my time and help keep me accountable. So that's why sometimes it may take 2 or 3 months for me to get an appointment with somebody, or somebody get on my calendar, because I scope out my son's schedule on my calendar. So I know to be present for basketball games, or be able to communicate with my husband or my son that I'm not going to be able to make it because certain meetings are important. And then I just carve out a certain amount of time, in which for me, it's 6 hours a month that I can give back. So sometimes I have to say no to certain organizations based upon the time commitment. And it's the same thing I encourage our clients.
That is very cool. It's like on a number of different levels, just like reassuring to hear, just from a female perspective too, that you had that mindset and you were able to shift that mindset when you saw the opportunity, and lean on your processes that you'd already put into place to make that happen. And that reminds me too of, I saw you had shared on LinkedIn about your work-life balance, and how how you focused on a work-life integration, which I hadn't heard that term before, but I really like that. You don't try to have a total distinction between work and professional life and personal life, but you try to integrate them where you can. And you'd shared a picture of your son Donovan being at a charity function and joining you in that way to see about giving back to your community. And I thought that was so cool. Is that something you guys do a lot of together?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's attended with his tuxedo on or his suit, March of Dime, events, because when he was young, we just wanted him with us all the time. And it was also a way to show him why sometimes mommy has to be, away, because I have to attend an event for a charity, because we're giving back. We realize and we teach him that we're privileged. We live a privileged life that many don't have access to, and people have they don't have the flexibility that I have. So what I say, work-life integration versus work-life balance, especially being an owner of a business or in upper management, the days of just clocking in at 8 and leaving at 5, even as a worker in our organization, is not encouraged. It's, communicate to me what are your needs and let me see how we can work together to integrate. Sometimes, which happened during the pandemic, we all had our kids at home. What we're going to do, so we ain't going to work this year? You know what I'm saying? Because your kids can't come to work. So what we've done, me and my husband both, my husband used to, coach football and be assistant athletic director. If there were times that we both had commitments, we looked and said, where does it make sense for him to go with one or the other? So I just integrate my son and go into charity events. I integrate, my son's at times when literally he was sick, where he shouldn't go to school, but not so sick that I couldn't go to work. So he's stayed in my office in his, sleeping bag while I went out and conducted a whole training that was 3 hours, long. So I just believe in integration and not it's 5 o'clock and I have to go and if you ask me to do something on the weekend. Now I do try to, for lack of a better word, carve out time on the weekends to make sure that we're not spending too much time doing a lot of, charity work. But just trying to find that integrated, not balance, because I think some people have went too far with the whole, in my personal opinion, with work-life balance. It's 8 to 5, and if somebody's sick, then I have to leave my job instead of trying to find a way for us to work with.
Yeah, I find it's personal to every person, but there are ways sometimes where you can mix the two in a way that works for everybody. So yeah, I can relate with that.
And then being reasonable. No, and I was saying, and being reasonable, too, because it's certain, with us, we try to work together. And I say that it's because of how our office is set up. We can bring a child to work, but we can't expect someone that's working, at Chick-fil-A to have the child standing outside taking an order, with them. So doing what you can, when you can.
I think it's and Anna Kate, I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't see that post, but the term work-life integration I think is very very interesting, and I think we do that here at Atiba really well, because there's been plenty of times where that door right behind me, a child comes busting in the middle of a call, and so you kind of, it makes you smile. I think that it makes people be more human to other people. We're not just a face, like we're another human on the other side of this call, and so I also like the idea of getting your children integrated in charity work and into their community. And I'm sure that you do encourage a lot of your entrepreneurs to get involved in the community, not just in organizations per se that they're involved with, but to, reach out, do something that's special, for you. So I think that's really cool. One thing that we can, really take away from this.
Yeah. So before I even got on the not incubation, but the March of Dimes board, well, I actually walked out of the hospital with my son in January and said, I must get back to, saying March of Dimes. And so we walked, we started in 2009. It was just me and one of my girlfriends and my son. We raised over, $10,000 average a year with anywhere from 50 to 100 people walking with us each year, just asking them for 25 or, saying or $50. And that team is called Friends of King Donovan. And I named it Friends of King Donovan because I want one for him to give back to March of Dimes, but also this affects so many people in our community. And so people would feel a way for their kids to get in, involved. Because many times people do ask us, like, well, what can I do to get my child involved? Where you can, do walks, you can go, volunteer a lot of places. So that's, one way. And then the other thing we do at the Incubation Center is called Adopt a Family. So every year, again, I started this when I came to Incubation Center because my husband and I had already been doing this, which is a lot of people do adopt a family or give back. But what I felt we need to do at the Incubation Center, because again, I hear so many people saying, oh, I'm going to do X when I get $1 million or $10 million. I'm like, but collectively, if we put it together $50 or $100, that's like $5,000. And it's been times where we had a family, no fault of the woman that took in the 4 kids because she had her 2 kids, but her sister passed with 4 kids. We bought a car. We came together collectively and used our social capital and called someone that had that knew someone that had a dealership. And it's like, this is how much money we have. What kind of vehicle can we get? And he gave us a discount based on that social capital.
That's really cool. Well, bringing it back to the NBIC a bit. So you took over as the CEO did you say 2012? I think I saw that.
Well, I was interim in 2012, and I became officially the CEO the fall of 2013.
So you're coming on a decade in that role as 2023. What changes have you made in that past decade, and also looking forward, what is up next for NBIC?
One of the things that I've really worked on over the past 2 years, because it became very evident during the pandemic that there was nowhere for a lot of women to go, and especially African American women. Our clientele went from being less than 31% women, period, to 81% women, and 78% of those are African American women that has revenue less than $24,000. So one of the things that's the next big thing for NBIC is we have a Rise Up Academy that's going to focus on women, and especially African American women. Truist is the funder of that project. They gave us $1.25 million to really go deep in those with these small business owners, because a lot of times they don't have, like I said earlier, the capital or the social capital, and definitely don't have the resources to put systems in place that's needed. And the goal is just work very intensively with these women. Applications for that program is going to open, earlier this year, and then we're also going to expand our services virtually into Birmingham, Huntsville, and Louisville. Kind of come along with their organizations that's doing startup and work with them on how can we scale businesses that they get to 100,000, but rarely get to that 1 million in the underserved community.
Now, so we have the Nashville Business Incubation Center. Now, is this something, because when you mention, Louisville, Birmingham, all these other surrounding states, is there a Birmingham Business Incubation Center? Is this present in all major cities, or is this kind of strictly Nashville stuff?
So the Nashville Business Incubation Center is strictly, Nashville. But what we're doing is now, thankfully, to COVID and working with the people and having the knowledge that we can do a lot of things online. We can internally build a system where people can still have that feel of being one-on-one, because we use Zoom. We know how to use Zoom rooms. And then we will go into the other communities with partners in those communities, like Ignite in Birmingham. They're already working with a lot of startups, but we can go there and partner with them on quarterly events, or teach, but redirect them back to our system that will now be online. Our model is virtual now, where we were, in a physical location with our classes and had, classrooms there as well as clients with their offices there. So now we just have a small office, and that's what has allowed us to really invest in staffing and paying properly and getting the infrastructure in place that we need.
Yeah, and I know that because I hosted one of the virtual seminars that you guys did, which was on e-commerce website building and SEO. So now is that something you're going to be offering a lot more of then, I guess, in 2023?
Yes. I mean, we have continued doing exact, same thing. It's what we're doing now is saying into these other communities, if you're not offering, we're going to say upper level, classes, then refer your clients to, NBIC. Because again, think of, and I'm afraid to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Think of, like, from taking an academic approach. You have the junior college, and that's great. You got a 2-year, so you got a 2-year degree, and you decide now I want to, move up in my company, and I need to go back and get, a 4-year degree. That's where we kind of position ourselves. Moving away from just that startup phase, we know that you need to be a lifelong learner, and that's what we're going to provide for them. And we have multiple programs to put people in based upon where they are, and they can build a community within our community. And we're going to do a lot of it virtually because it worked the past 2 years. We were able to more than double our revenue.
Wow, that is a great success story. So then being able to expand into some of these the cities nearby, you mentioned Birmingham, Montgomery, I think, and Louisville. So you'll be working with sometimes partners there to provide like a supplemental service, and that's the Rise Up Academy that you mentioned. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
That's really cool. And that's how you're thinking of this is maybe something they offer some of these startup services already, but maybe not something that's catering specifically to women or, specifically in this way to help continue to evolve their businesses. That's really cool. That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited about it because there are a lot of great organizations. We have great organizations in Nashville, but what I just don't see when we think about it is where is someone fulfilling that next level? We think about succession planning. When you start your business, are you starting with the end in mind? Things of that nature, and then walking with them, the whole way. So I'm excited because in those cities, there's a high population of minority and women firms, and we want to help them be able to take advantage of the growth that's coming to Louisville as well as Birmingham and Huntsville. When you think about Nashville, there's a lot of growth that's happened here. And imagine if we had had the resources that we have now, we could have grown more women and minorities to really participate in the growth of the city.
Well, I think all of what you are doing, Angela, is wonderful. I think you're a wonderful person, and you have a really good head on your shoulders. I just want to say, thank you for what you're doing for the Nashville community and all the people, all these new businesses. One final question I have for you is that when you were at Dairy Queen, did you ever have to teach your employees about the upside down blizzard?
I knew this was coming, and I wish it was a way to show a picture because I actually had to go to Dairy Queen school. So that's not. And I was there for 3 weeks trying to learn how to do, and they're very serious about that curlicue. So, every person has to be taught how to do the curlicue and how to, turn it upside down and make sure it doesn't fall.
Oh my gosh. The curlicue being the little spin on the top of the soft spoon. Oh my God.
Yes. Yeah, people don't think about it, but yes, we had to go to Dairy Queen school. And it was, for me, it was hard, very hard.
That's so cool.
I think that's awesome. Sorry, I always envisioned this whole time of you just like with a soft serve machine right out of view of the video here, and then like you just have the fact just as like a continuing education type of thing.
Well, if you had came over to our house a year ago, because I finally said, honey, we just got to let it go, because we brought one of the machines home. And we had it here for like 20 years. Even though we couldn't do ice cream, we had one, you can get the slushy from there. And so we had that machine here just as a museum piece.
As a keepsake from your time at Dairy Queen.
Right, because I spent a lot of hours.
I bet you did. That's awesome that there's a Dairy Queen school that they teach you just how to do that.
Yeah, you had to go to Minneapolis, and I had to go in March, and I went thinking it was like Nashville March. So that's why the other thing I'm big on is exposing my child to different, areas, because I went there and they're like, no, this is like 30 below, not 30 degrees. And I got to go to Dairy Queen school every day, leave the hotel and go. They actually have a school where they train you.
That's awesome.
And you got to pass.
You got to pass, or they kick you out. Well, I just want to again say thank you, Angela. It was really such a pleasure to have you here. If you guys do want to know a little bit more about the NBIC and the great things they're doing and some of their case studies and just their foundation and their framework of how they operate, you can go to nbiconline.com. Is .com or .org?
It's .com.
.com. and check them out. And if you want to get involved, there is a volunteer page. So go on there and check that out. Also, take a look at the Atiba website, atiba.com, ATIBA. And we have a page that is just dedicated to this podcast that you can check out and see about all of our socials. So, Angela, thank you again for your time today. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you so much for having me.
You've been listening to Half Geek, Half Human.